Our next speaker is Tim Scott. He's Director of Elections for Multnomah County in Oregon, and that's, of course, the most populous county in Oregon with more than 540,000 registered voters. Since 2008, Scott has led the county elections team through 12 federal elections and 14 special elections. His focus has been on bringing professionalism, accountability, transparency, and accessibility to the vote-by-mail process. And we are very proud of our vote-by-mail process, so he's doing a good job. He helped guide the county through the online voter registration, interstate data matching, and Oregon's new automatic voter registration process. He implemented innovative technology solutions to improve efficiency and voter confidence in the elections process through 100% transparency in handling and counting ballots. And we're looking forward to hearing from him.
Thank you very much. But I'm fortunate to come into Oregon elections 8 years into vote by mail, where a lot of the things were already worked out. And what I'm going to do tonight is give an overview of the security features in vote by mail. And a lot of thought was put into that when it was developed back in 2000. And then I'm going to talk about post-2016, the designation of elections as critical infrastructure and the federal partnerships that were put in place to try to combat the issues that we saw in 2016. Security tools that have been added to the process since 2016, and then the strategy that we're working on in 2020 to combat misinformation. I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to go as quickly as I can because there's a lot of ground to cover. Built right into the envelope that you receive in the mail is most of the security in vote by mail. Each envelope is assigned a unique 9-digit number that is represented by that top barcode there. And that is regardless of whether you got 2 ballots or not, because you called the elections office and said, my dog ate my first one or I lost it. We will generate you a new one, send it out, but it will have a different unique number assigned to it, and that helps protect against double voting. And then the other big piece that you can see on this envelope is the signature, and I'm going to tell you right away, that is a forgery. That is not my signature. The person who was helping me develop this slide today said my signature was not aesthetically pleasing, so she assigned me a new one. But that, of course, allows us to determine whether or not the person that the ballot was sent to and who was registered to vote is the person who indeed voted the ballot. So we compare those 2 signatures when we receive it back. And then each election is assigned a unique color within a range of 7 or 8 colors that we rotate through. So you can see on the ballot envelope the colored stripe. That's actually one of the security features as well, because each election we're choosing that color from a range, and no one really knows what it's going to be until we choose it. And then also we have holes that are pre-drilled in very precise location on every ballot, and those are manufactured very specifically so that if we happen to see one that an envelope that we thought might have been forged, we could measure the holes and make sure they were accurate. And then I just wanted to point out that we are in the process of an envelope redesign, so you are actually seeing an envelope that you won't see until May in this election. We started trying to be more clear about when the election, the key election dates are, and when the ballot has to be returned. So as you can see on that bottom one, we're now putting the date that you have to get it in the mail by in order to return it for free. That's a new feature of vote by mail this year. Postage is now included on all the ballots. And then the date that it would have to be deposited into a secure ballot site, which is election night at 8 p.m. Those are new features of the envelope. You saw it here first tonight. And then I also wanted to point out there's a couple features at the back of the envelope that we enhanced as well. It used to be that because this was an envelope and all envelopes have a return address block, that we had a return address block. However, as you'll see when we watch a little video later, that actually created some problems around privacy for us as we were processing those envelopes. And we realized that since we're including postage on every single envelope, there's no reason for that ballot to ever go back to the voter. So we just removed the return address block, and nobody complained yet. So we'll see how that goes. And again, we'll talk more about that in a few slides. And as was mentioned earlier, paper ballots are the gold standard in having a secure election, because then you have a piece of paper that has the original marks of the voter, and that piece of paper is preserved for 2 years after the election in a box in a secure location within the building. And so we're able to preserve that vote no matter what happens to the electronic record that's tallied. And so if we ever have to go back to the paper ballots, which in Oregon we also have the gold standard of recounts, if there's a recount, we have to go back to the original paper ballot in order to do the recount. We do not recount the electronic record. So those are some real key reasons why we have paper ballots. And then moving forward to when we get the ballots back, we use bipartisan teams that pick up the ballots from the 30 drop sites we have around the country. And that's really important. We want to make sure that the two people working together don't have any incentive to collude and do anything nefarious with the ballots. So all those teams are assigned by political party, and they go out throughout the county, pick up the ballots, and they use secure locked boxes in order to transport those ballots, so we have a nice chain of custody from the location to the back to the elections office. And then once we get the ballots back, they all go through the high-speed mail sorters. And the primary purpose of those sorters is to collect data about that envelope. And here's where that barcode and the signature comes in. The first thing that the sorter is checking is that barcode an accurate and legal barcode for this election? So if it's not, it will kick it out into a reject bin, and then we will process that ballot from hand. If it is, it just goes forward. And the next thing it does is it captures a digital image of the signature block that we're going to use for signature verification later on. And again, the ballot is never taken out of the envelope until these two items are checked and are accurate. Excuse me. So the next item I want to show you is kind of a twofer. We have the signature verification, which is taking place in another room, not this room, but you can see on the screens up on the right of this slide, the election observers, which is the other piece of security that's happening in this slide, are watching the signature verification happen live on those screens. With the move to the high-speed sorters, we're able to now do this entire project digitally. And so we capture the signature image digitally, it gets compared to the signature on the registration card digitally, and then it's just a matter of putting that, piping that data to a monitor where the observers can watch it. And those observers are performing key functions for us. They are watching the process, and then they're reporting back to whatever group that they're with, whether it's a political party or a candidate's campaign. They're taking the word back that I saw it happened correctly, and it was transparent, and so that you can have confidence in it. And that's a really key feature of our process today. And then the ballot moves on to the opening boards. And again, these teams are seated by political party. There must be at least 2 people of different political parties on the opening boards in order for them to function. If one of the people of different political parties that's key to that mix stands up, all processing stops. They have to work together as a team in order to move the process forward. And each one of those green trays contains 200 ballot envelopes that have already been signature verified, and the bottom sliced open so they're ready to open. and then they work together as a team, and this is where we're going to show you the video of that process. So if you can switch over to that video. So we had a lot of concerns about protecting the privacy when we have all that information together, and so we developed this video to help show that process. So go ahead and hit play.
The next election is right around the corner. Soon, voters will receive a ballot packet in the mail. You may have noticed a change to the secrecy envelope in your ballot packet. We are now using an optional secrecy sleeve design that provides just as much privacy for the voter, but is much faster to process. You may be wondering how a sleeve that isn't sealed on two sides can provide as much privacy as a sealed envelope. That is what we are going to show you today in this video. The privacy of the voter is protected by the process we use to open the ballots. All ballots are opened by teams of election workers from different political parties. Ballots are opened using a methodical process specifically designed to protect the voter's privacy. First, the election workers place the ballot envelopes in a stack in front of them with the identifying information face down. Then, the workers remove the contents from the return envelopes. The envelopes may include the secrecy sleeve or just a ballot if the voter chose not to use the secrecy sleeve. Workers create a stack of ballots and optional secrecy sleeves without unfolding or examining the ballots. Once all team members have completed this process, each pile of return envelopes are grouped, bundled, and removed from the table. Then, workers start removing the ballots from the optional secrecy sleeves. The sleeves are then bundled and removed from the table just like the return envelopes. Only after all return envelopes and optional secrecy sleeves are removed from the table do workers start unfolding the ballots and placing them in a container to move to the counting room. At no point in the process is the voter's name connected to how they vote. A black and white privacy weave inside the secrecy sleeve and the return envelope also helps shield the ballot from being viewed. Whether you choose to use the optional secrecy sleeve or not, your vote will still count and remain private throughout the process that we've just shown you. Innovations like the optional secrecy sleeve allow us to process ballots more efficiently. This leads to the work being completed faster so that the results can be released to the public sooner.
Okay, so we're running a little short of time, so I'm going to try to wrap up kind of this walk through the process with the physical security that we have in the tally room. And I'm just going to list a bunch of things off. You're welcome to ask questions about them. We have key card controlled access to the tally room. Only staff that need access have it. 8 motion activated cameras recording as soon as someone enters the room. The tally system is, as was mentioned earlier, is air-gapped, meaning that it only exists inside the room, never connected to the internet or connected to any other network. USB ports that are not in use are plugged with a device that requires a special key to remove. USB ports that have a tamper-evident that are in use have a tamper-evident seal. Encryption used throughout the system makes it difficult to access without credentials. Passwords are changed each election or when staff change. And then in adjudication teams, which are also bipartisan, each member of the team only has half of the password, so they have to work together just to log into the system. And then we also do a ton of logic and accuracy testing when we program the election. 25,000 to 30,000 ballots are created and pre-marked in a predetermined pattern. And then we take a subset of that and run it for the public 3 times throughout the course of election to make sure the ballots are tallying correctly. And then we also have bipartisan teams of election workers who can go out in the field and help people exercise their right to vote. They could do that by helping them read and mark the ballot, but they can also bring assistive technology where the voter can vote privately and independently as well. And then we've talked about audits. Audits have been mentioned earlier. And Oregon has actually been ahead of the curve on that as well, implementing audits after every general election in 2008. And then Multnomah County has moved forward with doing audits after every election starting in 2017. And then most recently, as Becky mentioned, RLAs were implemented, and I'm going to cover a couple more things, even though I just got the stop sign. Moving on to what's been done since 2016, we've been really fortunate to have this great partnership with Department of Homeland Security and CISA, which is kind of the branch that's been tasked with working with Elections Office on critical infrastructure. They've provided information sharing through the EI-ISAC and the Center for Internet Security, so we have more information than we've ever had before, and you can look all that stuff up as well. And then we've also been the benefactor of physical and cybersecurity audits provided by Homeland Security, which has helped us create a list of things that we want to work on. We've been working with county leadership to try to evaluate options and support enhancements for 2020. And then the state is going to be able to provide Albert sensors, which are network intrusion detection systems funded by federal grant money. And then we're also working with county IT to find solutions for social media monitoring to deal with misinformation and disinformation. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about just a couple things we're doing to address misinformation. The National Association of Secretaries of State has started the Trusted Info 2020 campaign that we've been using to try to make people aware that cyber hygiene is everyone's responsibility. Evaluating information sources is everybody's responsibility. And we've been trying to do that through communications plan with the help of our colleagues in communications, and have a sustained media strategy throughout the year, and then getting educational materials out in advance so that folks know what are the rules that apply to elections in Oregon, because there's sometimes confusion when you've got primaries happening all across the country. What are the rules that apply to me, and how do I exercise my right to vote? So getting information about that out there. Thank you very much.
Tim, we have a relatively short answer question for you. Are the Multnomah County election procedures followed by other Oregon counties? Are all counties equally protected?
Yes, is the short answer. If you go into any county, we all follow the same playbook, the vote by mail manual, which is the administrative rule that adopts vote by mail from the statutes. We're all following the same rules. If you go into Baker County, you're probably not going to see two Bell and Howell high-speed sorters that can process 70,000 ballots an hour, but you'll see them following the same rules. They're scanning the barcodes, and they're signature verifying every signature by hand, and those are the same rules that we all use. We just process ballots a little differently.
I have a couple questions for Tim very quickly that kind of go together. One of it is, what kind of voting frauds, if any, have been detected in Oregon in recent years, and how many? And also, have we had any examples of voter suppression in Oregon?
So, I mean, there in the 12 years that I've been doing this in Oregon, I would say the number of cases that Multnomah County has turned over to the Secretary of State's office is probably under 10, where we believed that it was actually fraud, somebody trying to do something illegal to either gain an additional vote or vote when they weren't supposed to. So the incidence is very low from both personal experience as well as what I know of what I've read, studies that have been done. And then, voter suppression can take many forms. I think Oregon's laws do a really good job of protecting people and giving them the ability to vote when it's convenient for them, in a location that's convenient for them. But there are people who maybe don't have all of the freedoms or the health or the things that a lot of us take for granted, and sometimes there are people who will take advantage of those things. We've had that reported to us in the past, and that's something that we're worried about, especially with our voter assistance program. When we go into somebody's house, we're all mandatory reporters. We look for signs of elder abuse. We look for signs of people maybe not getting taken care of, and we try to make that part of our lens as we serve the public as well.
Thank you. One more quick question on that. This one says, I am convinced about the security of the Oregon elections, but I worry about other states. How can we be confident in national elections results in all the different election administrations? Any comments on other states from any of you?
This is a great question. However, I've been an election administrator in 2 different states. I've met people from all over the country. I network both regionally and nationally with election officials as well as internationally, and we all have one thing in common. We all want to do a great job within the laws of the state that we're working in, and I think that is really kind of the difference in elections is the state laws that are applied.